I want to let you know something that I found out just last night. Next year will be our last season. The network will be ending The Late Show in May. I share your feelings. It's not just the end of our show, but it's the end of The Late Show on CBS.
Stephen Colbert's Late Show was a powerhouse for nearly a decade, topping ratings and winning awards in a fiercely competitive late-night landscape.
The audience thought it was a bit. And they started going, "You can do it! Come on, Steve, you can do it!" Because I always messed up on the sentence that told them what was happening. And then I got to the sentence that actually told them what was happening, and they didn't laugh.
Yet, when his show was abruptly canceled despite millions of loyal viewers, it sent shockwaves through the industry. What could cause the highest-rated late-night program to vanish seemingly overnight? This story isn't just about numbers or entertainment. It's about politics, power plays, and a man whose journey from tragedy to triumph shaped a voice that millions relied on. And just when it seemed the show's future was secure, an unexpected moment on air may have changed everything. Sudden end to a late-night giant. Stephen Colbert was at the peak of his late-night career when the unthinkable happened. His show, which had dominated ratings and won acclaim for nearly a decade, was suddenly cancelled. This wasn't because viewers had tuned out or the host wanted to step away. In fact, The Late Show was still pulling in an impressive 2.7 million nightly viewers and had held the top spot for 9 consecutive seasons. Yet CBS made the decision to pull the plug, leaving fans and industry insiders alike stunned. What made the cancellation so jarring was not simply the success or longevity of the show, but the manner in which it unfolded. Colbert himself was caught completely off guard, learning of the decision only after it had been finalized by network executives. He was on vacation when his manager, who had known for weeks, deliberately held back the news. This quiet unfolding behind the scenes contrasted sharply with the public's heated response once the news broke. When Colbert returned and addressed his audience at the Ed Sullivan Theater, he took control of the narrative before CBS could make its official announcement. His tone was calm, measured, and filled with gratitude for the 200 people who brought the nightly program to life. Yet his words carried an unmistakable weight of loss. He explained that the show was not being handed off to a new host or reimagined. It was simply ending. The Late Show brand, a defining presence on CBS since 1993, was disappearing. The moment was raw and unexpectedly communal. The audience responded with boos, their disappointment and frustration echoing through the theater. Colbert met that reaction with a simple nod, acknowledging they shared the same feelings. This was more than just a show ending. It was the close of an era, one intertwined with generations of late-night television history. His fans mourned not only the host, but an institution that had shaped their nightly routine. The decision seemed almost inexplicable, and questions swirled. After all, no show had maintained such dominance for so long and ended so abruptly without a clear reason. CBS insisted the cancellation was purely a business move, based on financial challenges facing the late-night format. But for many, that explanation didn't quite add up. Rumors of internal conflicts and discomfort with the show's content began to surface, suggesting something deeper was at play behind the scenes. Colbert's departure also marked a unique moment for late-night television as a whole. Unlike previous transitions, where a host would pass the torch or a show would reinvent itself, this was a complete shutdown. No new host was announced. No new format teased. The curtain closed, leaving a void at a time when late-night audiences were more fragmented than ever. What could trigger such a radical move when the star was shining brighter than ever? This abrupt ending left industry experts, fans, and colleagues speculating about what might have prompted such a sudden corporate decision. There was a growing belief that the reasons stretched beyond simple ratings or financial calculus. People started to wonder if something Colbert had done or said might have unsettled powerful figures at the network or parent company. The truth seemed tied to events yet to be fully revealed. 3 days before the official cancellation, Colbert had made an on-air comment that many now consider a turning point in the story. The controversial comment and fallout. Just days before CBS formally announced the end of The Late Show, Stephen Colbert made a remark that stirred significant controversy. Paramount, CBS's parent company, had agreed to pay $16 million to settle a lawsuit brought by former President Donald Trump. The suit stemmed from Trump's claim that CBS News unfairly edited an interview with then-vice presidential candidate Kamala Harris on 60 Minutes during the 2024 campaign. Colbert addressed this development directly in his monologue, calling the settlement payment a bribe on air. His statement was unambiguous and sharp, explicitly linking the legal settlement to what appeared to be an effort to curry favor with powerful interests. This public accusation quickly drew attention not only within the entertainment world, but also among political circles and media watchdogs. The response from CBS was swift and firm. The network insisted that the cancellation of The Late Show was unrelated to Colbert's comment or any political pressures. They emphasized that the decision had been financial and strategic, consistent with challenges facing late-night programming across the board. Despite these official statements, the timing of the cancellation felt too close to be a coincidence for many observers. Prominent figures expressed concern and demanded answers. Senator Elizabeth Warren publicly called for transparency, asserting the public deserved to know whether political motivations were at play in silencing one of television's most vocal critics. Meanwhile, the Writers Guild of America urged the New York State Attorney General to investigate the circumstances, suggesting the cancellation resembled a maneuver designed to benefit corporate and political players behind the scenes. This controversy was set against a backdrop of a massive merger deal between Paramount and Skydance Media, which was under review by federal regulators while Colbert's show was canceled. The FCC, headed by a chairman known for warning late-night hosts about equal time rules, approved the merger shortly after the show ended. Critics saw this sequence of events as more than coincidental, pointing to an environment where corporate influence could suppress critical voices. Donald Trump himself publicly celebrated Colbert's firing on his social media platform, calling it a win, a victory, and even saying other late-night hosts like Jimmy Kimmel might be next. Colbert didn't really slow down, though, and he came back with renewed fire on his show, saying the gloves were off, and then delivering one of the most hard-hitting monologues of his career. That response really made it clear the whole thing wasn't over yet, like the feud, or whatever you want to call it, was still burning, and he treated this as one of those defining moments, a real test. While all the public argument kept going, right out in the open, the network had to do that tricky behind-the-scenes juggling. Like one side, they wanted to control the mess and keep things at arm's length, plausible deniability and all that. But on the other side, they had to live with the money, the budgets, and the financial realities that quietly steer decisions. The mix of business, politics, and creative expression has gotten more brittle over time, and Colbert's sharp remarks kind of yanked it all into the spotlight. While tensions simmered over politics and power, the economic truth behind late-night TV's struggles was becoming impossible to ignore. The financial realities of late-night TV. Behind the headlines and political drama, the late-night television business was facing significant financial challenges. Reports from sources close to CBS revealed that The Late Show was operating at a substantial loss, somewhere between $40 million and, according to some accounts, closer to $30 million annually. These figures pointed to a real and pressing economic issue that made sustaining even a top-rated show difficult. The late-night format itself had been under pressure for years. Audience habits were changing rapidly, with viewers breaking away from traditional TV schedules in favor of streaming platforms and on-demand content. Advertising dollars were also following that shift, moving away from the late-night time slot toward digital and social media platforms where CBS had less control and faced tougher competition. Stephen Colbert's show benefited from viral moments and online engagement, But these successes did not translate into revenues for CBS. The network did not own the platforms where clips were most popular, limiting their ability to capitalize on those views through advertising. This disconnect between audience attention and financial return was a growing problem for networks relying on traditional revenue models. 2 years before Colbert's cancellation, CBS ran into some similar problem-ish situation when it wrapped up The Late Late Show with James Corden. That run was also kinda costly to keep on the air, and it didn't really start returning much profit. CBS then swapped it out for a lower-cost kind of program, something built to get the time slot through with way less risk. That parallel basically made what happened to Late Show look a lot clearer. Like cost-cutting was not just a side note but a real priority. Still, The Late Show was in this different, almost standout spot as the flagship of CBS's late-night setup. Unlike the 12:35 segment, which might let the network try a cheaper alternative, the 11:35 slot was the crown, the main thing, and there wasn't an obvious substitute that could match its pull. So when the network decided to end Colbert, without openly naming who would take over, it really showed how tangled the balance is between prestige and profitability. And here's a twist. Colbert was actually a co-executive producer on the show that replaced Corden, called After Midnight. That meant he had some inside view of how tight the margins became for late-night productions, not just as an observer, but more like a participant. He knew the financial strain was there, yet he didn't get the chance to pitch ways to shrink the budget on his own show. That fueled the idea that pure money, alone, probably wasn't the only thing sealing the outcome, even if it was a big part of it. The program CBS said it would use to fill the Late Show slot was Comics Unleashed. It's a comedy game show. It intentionally avoided political material and any sharp social commentary. In practice, this pointed to a more cautious strategy, where CBS seemed to lean toward safer, less controversial content. Overall, it highlighted how late night on that network was shifting toward financial caution and away from higher-risk moves that could backfire. As we look deeper into Colbert's life and career, we find the human resilience behind the headlines and the show that changed late night forever. Colbert's personal story and resilience. Stephen Colbert's journey to late-night stardom is deeply rooted in personal tragedy and profound resilience. When he was just 10 years old, his father and 2 brothers died in a tragic plane crash in Charlotte, North Carolina. This devastating loss forever altered the trajectory of his life, yet Colbert never sought sympathy for it. Instead, he credits his mother with teaching him how to process grief without letting it turn into bitterness. That early experience shaped his ability to approach difficult subjects with a unique blend of humor and sincerity. As a young adult, Colbert wrestled with questions of faith, entering a period of crisis that led him to identify as an atheist at age 22. However, a chance encounter with a stranger reignited his Catholic beliefs, something he describes as almost accidental in its timing and impact. This spiritual journey added layers to the voice he would later bring to his comedy, one that can be contemplative as well as sharply satirical. His faith and life experiences became powerful tools for navigating complex emotions through humor. Colbert's educational path reflects his determination to hone his craft. He began at Hampton-Sydney College in Virginia before transferring to Northwestern University, where he earned a theater degree in 1986. His move to Chicago introduced him to the world of improv, joining the renowned Second City troupe. There he met Amy Sedaris and Paul Dinello, creative partners with whom he developed early sketch comedy projects that showcased his talent and distinctive voice. Their work together led to a Comedy Central series called Exit 57 in the mid-90s, which, though short-lived, earned 5 Cable Ace nominations. These formative years helped Colbert sharpen his skills as a comedian and writer, setting the stage for future success. Early setbacks, like missing out on a writing job for The Late Show with David Letterman, did not deter him. Instead, they became part of a learning process that underscored his persistence. Colbert's breakthrough showed up in 1997, when he joined The Daily Show on kind of a trial basis, not really promised anything. Step by step, he turned into the longest-running correspondent, and over time, people started noticing how his political satire cuts through things. On that stage, he sort of built a character, a satirical right-wing pundit, you know, the kind that feels familiar yet wildly off, and it caught the public's attention fast. That role also proved very clearly that he can mix jokes and commentary without it turning into just noise. Eventually, it pushed him toward his own late-night show, like the next logical step, or maybe the only step. What makes his story feel so compelling is that he built something from nothing. Even with early setbacks and those professional hurdles that seem to follow you around, his late-night persona wasn't something that happened by luck. It was crafted over years, and it reads like he made deliberate choices the whole way. Behind the humor, there was a guy shaped by grief, plus this ongoing faith struggle, and a steady insistence on truth-telling through comedy. That background adds a real layer to how he handles decisions as host of one of TV's most prominent programs. And his resilience, you can see it in how he works. He's got sharpness in the jokes, but also real empathy, which is not as common as you'd think. Colbert uses comedy like a careful distance, holding painful and complicated realities a bit away, so he and the audience can think critically without getting crushed. That balancing act is rare, and he manages it with this strange grace. So yeah, he got the laughs, but he also earned something else along the way: respect. Transitioning from the resilience that shaped him, it's important to look at how Colbert took over an iconic show and transformed it in ways few expected. Evolution of The Late Show under Colbert. Taking over The Late Show from David Letterman in September 2015 was no small feat. Letterman had been the defining voice of the 11:35 time slot for 22 years, setting a standard that seemed almost impossible to match. Colbert arrived with a reputation built on playing a character, a satirical, exaggerated pundit, not as himself. Now he was stepping out without a mask, tasked with redefining a well-known franchise under his own name. The challenge was enormous. His first season tested both critics and viewers. Ratings were disappointing, and the show struggled to find its identity. The tone was uncertain, with some calling the transition awkward and uneven. A post-Super Bowl special in February 2016 was widely regarded as a misstep, failing to capitalize on one of the year's biggest television audiences. Many questioned whether Colbert could carry the legacy of The Late Show while also forging his own path. But the political landscape shifted dramatically after the 2016 election. Donald Trump's presidential victory gave Colbert's monologues new urgency and clarity. His tone sharpened, growing more direct and personal. The show moved from broader political satire to a relentless critique of the new administration, striking a chord with viewers hungry for unfiltered commentary. The audience responded by tuning in record numbers. By the 2016 to 2017 season, The Late Show had become the highest-rated late-night program in the country for the first time since Letterman's era. It was averaging more than 3.2 million viewers per night, a remarkable achievement given the crowded field of competitors. The Late Show also started winning key demographics, particularly viewers aged 18 to 49, outpacing The Tonight Show for the first time since the early 90s. Colbert maintained that momentum for 9 consecutive seasons, navigating interruptions like the pandemic and industry strikes without losing his audience. He carved out a distinct space in late night by breaking away from the typical celebrity interview formula. Instead, he sought conversations with surprising depth, talking with Joe Biden about grief during COVID, exploring his Catholic faith with Dua Lipa, or playfully inviting Michelle Obama to do impressions. These moments built trust and authenticity rarely seen in the genre. His approach attracted a loyal following that treasured the show not just for politics, but for its humanity. Colbert cultivated a late-night experience where unexpected honesty could flourish amid the comedy. That trust was earned over years of consistency and a genuine connection with guests and viewers alike. The profound changes Colbert brought to The Late Show highlighted a tension between tradition and transformation, one that foreshadowed the challenges to come. Political climate and corporate interests. Behind the scenes of late-night television, a complex set of political and corporate forces was reshaping the landscape in ways few viewers could see. The cancellation of Stephen Colbert's Late Show did not happen in isolation. It coincided with a period of intense scrutiny over media companies, political influence, and corporate mergers. Paramount Global, which owns CBS, was in the midst of negotiating a massive merger with Skydance Media, a deal requiring federal approval and subject to intense regulatory review. The timing of Colbert's cancellation suspiciously aligned with these high-stakes negotiations. At the same time, the Federal Communications Commission, led by a chairman known for warning late-night hosts about equal time rules and political fairness, held considerable sway. This chairman had already sent signals that the FCC was watching political content on television closely. For networks like CBS, the pressure to avoid controversy while securing business deals created a fraught environment. The network's decision to cancel a politically charged show seemed to many like more than mere coincidence. Senator Elizabeth Warren publicly questioned whether political motivations influenced the cancellation, urging transparency and accountability. Her statement reflected wider concerns that corporate media might silence voices challenging powerful interests. Behind the scenes, the Writers Guild of America pushed for a formal investigation by the New York State Attorney General, suggesting that the decision resembled favoritism benefiting established power players rather than a straightforward business choice. Donald Trump's reaction added a sharp political edge to the situation. He celebrated Colbert's firing openly on social media, framing it as a personal victory. He even predicted that other outspoken late-night hosts like Jimmy Kimmel would face similar consequences. These comments fueled perceptions of a politically motivated effort to reshape late-night television and limit criticism from popular voices. Colbert's response was pretty swift and, in a way, forceful. He just said, "The gloves were off," and then kinda launched into one of his most direct monologues ever, as if to make it clear he was ready to meet head-on the forces that seemed aligned against him. That back and forth, it kinda showed the high stakes, not just entertainment, but more like a real fight over free speech, political influence, and the limits of satire in today's media climate. At the middle of the whole controversy was a settlement payment, $16 million, coming from Paramount to Donald Trump. The connection was to a lawsuit where CBS News was accused of editing a political interview unfairly. Colbert had called that payment a bribe on air, which, was a very bold thing to do. A lot of people think it helped set things in motion and maybe even helped precipitate the show's end. Whether that was truly definitive or not, it still underlined how closely politics and business can tangle up with media choices. Then you had the merger approval process, FCC oversight, statements from elected officials, plus all those public attacks, which made the mood feel charged. It also complicated the smoother business story CBS tried to tell. For a mix of folks inside the industry and outside it, this was one of those moments where political and corporate interests basically converged, pushing toward where a major TV platform would end up. Yet, beyond these high-level pressures, there was a community intimately connected to the show whose experiences told another side of the story. The community behind the curtain. The world of late-night television can often seem like an arena of solitary stars, but behind every show is a dedicated team whose work is essential and whose loyalty runs deep. Stephen Colbert's Late Show was no exception. When news of the cancellation came, it was not just the host and the audience affected. It was hundreds of staff members whose livelihoods and crafts were intertwined with the show's existence. From writers to producers, camera operators to editors, 200 people made the daily magic happen. In the weeks leading up to the final episodes, an unusual and touching gesture unfolded. Fellow late-night hosts, who had been competitors, including Jimmy Kimmel, Jimmy Fallon, Seth Meyers, and John Oliver, gathered as guests on Colbert's penultimate episode. Rather than rivals jockeying for ratings, they appeared as friends and allies. United by a shared experience and mutual respect, Colbert introduced them as his best television friends, and the gathering carried the warmth of a family meeting after a long, hard journey. This camaraderie was rooted in history. During the 2023 Writers Guild of America strike, these hosts had come together in a joint podcast called Strike Force 5. The unscripted project was dedicated to supporting the writers, producers, and crew members left without work, an act of solidarity that resonated widely. When the end of Colbert's show approached, that bond was on full display, symbolizing solidarity in the face of industry upheaval. On the night of Colbert's finale, Kimmel announced he would air a repeat episode of his own show instead of new content, signaling a willingness to clear the competitive field out of respect. This gesture underscored the deep connections formed among these entertainers beyond professional rivalry. Their unity pointed to the human cost behind business decisions. One of the most poignant moments hit when David Letterman came back to the Ed Sullivan Theater, the place he helped rebuild, and where his legacy got really cemented, you know. He got this long-standing ovation, and then spoke pretty candidly about his anger regarding the cancellation. Letterman basically reminded everyone that the theater itself, and that late-night tradition, rests on foundations he had helped build in the first place. His remarks sort of underlined that, no matter what the network decided, the voice of genuine storytelling and satire can't just be taken away like that. Meanwhile, letters and tributes from other well-known luminaries also made the point just how wide the respect runs for Colbert, reflecting how much influence he carried inside the entertainment world. Those gestures weren't only about farewells, but more like acknowledgments of a shared past and cultural influence that stretched way beyond the whole ratings thing. And yeah, Barack Obama even stopped by in those final weeks, having a conversation that a lot of people read as both personal and political at once. He said, half in jest, that Colbert might consider running for office, which pointed to how public influence keeps evolving and how entertainers can end up with unexpected roles in society. That exchange, in a way, captured Colbert's larger gravity as a cultural figure, beyond late night itself. With the support and respect of his peers behind him, Colbert faced the future beyond the Ed Sullivan Theater, ready to take the next step in a career marked by reinvention and resilience. What's next for Stephen Colbert? As the final curtain fell on Stephen Colbert's Late Show, the question on everyone's mind was what comes next for a man who had become one of late night's defining voices. Far from being idle, Colbert had already planned his next chapter long before the cancellation was announced. Back in March, he revealed that he would be working alongside his son, Peter, to write a new Lord of the Rings film. This project, embraced by director Peter Jackson, was something Colbert had been quietly nurturing for years. Colbert's love for Tolkien's universe goes beyond casual fandom. Known as a walking encyclopedia of Middle-earth lore, he once recited the entire biography of Aragorn from memory on live television. His passion runs deep, and this new film project represents a creative dream finally coming within reach. The Late Show's end, while unexpected, freed up his schedule and allowed him space to pursue this long-held ambition with renewed focus. Beyond filmmaking, Colbert's career stands as a testament to adaptation and resilience. After more than 11 years on The Late Show, producing over 1,800 episodes, and earning numerous accolades including 11 Emmy Awards, 2 Grammys, and 3 Peabody Awards, he is far from finished. His ability to reinvent himself and thrive speaks to a dynamic talent that refuses to be confined by one format or platform. Colbert's departure from late night is not merely a closing chapter, but a transition to new possibilities. His willingness to embrace change reflects a broader journey, from a boy shaped by loss and doubt to a man who uses humor as a powerful lens on culture and politics. This transformation continues to unfold as he steps into roles beyond the nightly monologue. In the weeks before the finale, there was this steady outpouring of support from peers, friends, and even political figures that really, underscored Colbert's impact. You know, conversations with people like Barack Obama, where Obama joked about him maybe considering running for office, really brought out how Colbert sits in that odd little sweet spot at the crossing of entertainment and public life. His voice doesn't just travel through television, it lands in ways that go past the usual lines. And then, right, in the studio, when the audience booed after hearing the show was ending so abruptly, Colbert just nodded, like he got it. And he shared that disappointment with them. He said thank you and kept this quiet determination. It was basically a recognition that even if the goodbye wasn't exactly on his timetable, it still handed him more material, more to say, and one last reason to show up every night. That mix of defiance and sincerity feels like it sums up the whole shape of his career. For the final episode, with a star-studded parade of guests like Jimmy Kimmel, Seth Meyers, David Letterman, Tom Hanks, and The Strokes, the send-off turned out to be nothing less than monumental. It was a celebration of a legacy that reshaped late night. But it was also this tender goodbye to a stretch of culture that felt like it ended before it really should have, for a lot of fans and insiders alike. Stephen Colbert's Late Show may have ended abruptly, but his influence, resilience, and creativity live on. From top ratings to an unexpected farewell, his story reveals the complex interplay of media, politics, and personal passion. If you found this story insightful, please like and subscribe for more deep dives into stories that matter.